everyone, my name is Hannah, and let's talk about my most anticipated movie of the year. So last night I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and I tried to go into this as blind as possible, but I didn't decide that until after the very first trailer had come out. So just that very first one is the only one I've seen. I have heard a few of the rumors, but nothing like extravagant or anything like that. So this first section here is going to be completely non-spoilers. I will definitely warn you when I'm going to get into the spoiler section. The spoiler section will go in a bit deeper into some of the things I mention in the non-spoiler section to kind of justify why I think or feel that way. So the first thing I want to bring up is the pacing here. I was honestly bored in probably the first half hour, 45 minutes of this movie, which is a freaking tragedy. The pacing just felt so strange. It really felt all over the place, and when the scenes would jump from one to another, it just felt so sudden and jarring at times. It just was not what I was expecting. And with that pacing being so off, this movie ended up feeling a lot longer than its actual runtime. It's pretty much just 2 hours, but it definitely felt like it was that 2.5 mark. This movie also went straight to 100 right out of the gates and just stayed there the whole time, which I think kind of created some of those pacing issues and is another reason why it felt like it was so long. Some of the marketing for this movie was about how this is Marvel's turn into horror and gonna have more horror elements, and that is the case. I don't think that's a spoiler or anything. There are some very common horror elements and tropes here that you see in pretty much every horror movie, so it's not doing anything new or like breaking any boundaries or anything, but it was just very refreshing to see in a Marvel movie, and it fit the tone quite well, so that was just kind of like an added bonus. And on top of the horror, this is also one of the more brutal movies, and this is another thing I want to bring up is that this might be a bit censored in some countries, so you might kind of want to look into that if you think that might be the case for you, because after watching this, obviously I went online and wanted to see what other people were saying, and some people were talking about how in the brutal scenes there wasn't like any blood where there should be or things like that, and they completely omitted talking about some of the scenes that I had seen that had a lot of blood, like little clips and stuff. So I'm just like, how did you not see that? Like, it was definitely there. So some people were wondering if maybe there is a censored version. So do keep that in mind. I can't confirm that, but just how some people were talking, it definitely seemed to be the case. Personally, I hope they keep these more brutal scenes going forward. It definitely makes the stakes seem higher, feel more real, and I don't know, it was very refreshing for Marvel. There are some unique fight scenes here, which I pretty much enjoyed all of them, but some of the CGI in the fight scenes looked like the early Marvel movies, not the current Marvel movies, and it was really jarring because you could exactly see where it switches from CGI to real person kind of deal, and it was just so glaringly obvious. Like, I was even just like, whoa, like it just kind of almost startled me a bit because I feel like it hasn't been that bad in spots in a while. So the entire plot of this movie pretty much feels like stuff we've seen before. It's very deja vu. Unfortunately, this went into me being disappointed at the end. For me, I do acknowledge that my expectations were probably too high going into this, but I mean, there's all the rumors about this movie, there's all the hype over this movie. They've been pushing this movie so freaking hard, and with the delays and everything, like, of course I had high expectations, and it just didn't give me what I wanted. It didn't exactly deliver as much as it said it was going to, I feel like. And with all the Marvel movies we've had in the past, I was just expecting more at this point than what they gave. And don't get me wrong, like, this is not a bad movie by any means. It just isn't a great movie. It isn't what I was exactly looking for at this time with this movie. Alright, so here is where I'm going to go into the spoiler talk. Like I said, I will be elaborating on some of the things I previously said here as well. So fast forward or actually just stop watching if you don't want any spoilers. Gonna start now. So, since I went into this so blind, I did not know that Wanda is the villain of this movie. That came as a shock to me. I thought she was going to help Doctor Strange, and that maybe like the what if Doctor Strange version of Steven, or maybe like a group of alternate Doctor Stranges, maybe they were the bad guys. That's kind of what I was expecting. But no, Wanda is the villain. And the reason this feels like a deja vu is because we pretty much get the plot of WandaVision all over again. And I kind of thought it was resolved at the end of WandaVision. Like, Wanda has her redemption, right? But then in here, it just kind of starts all over again, where she's evil and then she has to have a redemption again. And so it's just kind of like, we literally just saw this. And that just felt disappointing for me, because Wanda is one of my favorite characters, but I just felt like this movie made me not quite like her as much, just because she's been in everything. It feels like she's everywhere, and we're just getting the same story with her over and over now. Wanda did give some of my favorite moments in the movie. With those horror elements, there's a moment with Wanda where she's like walking through this facility, and her face, she has like blood coming down it and stuff, and her hair is like all matted and everything, and it's a full-on like Carrie from Stephen King moment, and I loved that. Like, that was perfect. That was a great nod, and that was just a fantastic horror element that they included in there. Also, there's a moment where it's like, I guess you'd call it fourth wall breaking, where she looks directly into the camera, and just how she does that, because she's just kind of looking off to the side, and then it's literally her looking directly at us. And it's such a perfect moment. It's just like a second or two long, and it gave me chills, because it's sort of just like, oh shit, she's coming for me now. I don't remember if this was in WandaVision, but one thing that I'm really glad they added is the black fingertips on those that are practicing witchcraft, and that's actual, like, in real life witch lore. And I thought that was an amazing, like, Easter egg. I'm not sure if that's the word you would use, but I just thought that was a fantastic element that they added in there. I love that. Like, visually, it's also, like, stunning, and it's just added another almost horror element on top of everything else. There was a new character added in this movie, America Chavez. I am not a comic book reader, unfortunately. I've watched all of the movies and the shows in the MCU. Well, not all the shows. I have not watched like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, but I do want to get into some of the comics. But anyway, the character America Chavez, I know of her. Like, looking at the poster, I was like, hey, I think that's what this character is, or who this character is, but we learn almost nothing about her in this movie. It opens with her basically like falling into Doctor Strange's lap, and then it's just, she's pretty much an accessory in this movie. She's just kind of in the background and just there, and she's just there to move the plot forward, essentially. Like, she doesn't really add anything or say anything or do anything where it's like, okay, this is like a valued character that's adding to this, and I enjoy her and stuff. Like, it just wasn't that at all. We learned nothing. You can't connect with her. My cat is about to jump onto the camera. Okay. And I just felt that was so disappointing. Like, we're getting introduced to this brand new character, and then she's just in the background. So hopefully her story will get more broadened in the future, but I guess we'll just have to see on that. So the censored parts I mentioned earlier, someone on Reddit had been, which I know not reliable at all, had been talking about how when they saw it, there is a death where there should have been more blood, but it was just like a nosebleed kind of deal, where in my theater, like, there was blood around the entire head. They were talking about like every scene that had like some blood, and they completely didn't mention the bloody shield, and they didn't mention the blood running down Wanda's face, and so that's why me and some others were thinking maybe there's a censored version. But like I said, can't confirm it, but just how this person and some others were talking, it just seems like that might be the case. And also, some of the rumors going around, the main ones that I know of were like, there's going to be an alternate version of Iron Man played by Tom Cruise, or Deadpool's going to be in this. And obviously there's like a entire list of characters that people thought were going to be in this, but I tried to stay away from that as much as possible. So I can confirm Iron Man isn't in this, Deadpool isn't in this, probably 99.9% of the characters you hoped were going to be in this weren't. It's a very, very limited list, and it is mostly characters we've seen before. I think it might be all, but like I said, I haven't seen all of the smaller shows, so some of those characters might have been in other ones. It wasn't to the extent that I think the entire world was expecting. Like, you think Multiverse of Madness, we're going to see a lot of people. That is not the case, unfortunately. So I would definitely pare down your expectations for that. But overall, this was a disappointing movie for me, just because the whole concept of the multiverse I love. I freaking love alternate universes, multiverses, like alternate versions of the characters. I think that is just fascinating and just opens up so much creativity. But it feels like it was lost in this movie. Like, it just didn't seem to be able to figure out what it wanted to be. And although I loved the horror elements, like, there's kind of jump scares, but like nothing that actually would get you kind of thing. And pretty much anything you would see in a generic horror movie, that's kind of what they used here. Like, even though there were parts that I loved, like the unique fights, which they literally at one point, there's two Doctor Stranges fighting with literal like music notes and music scores. Like, I thought that was really unique. There's zombie Doctor Strange, like those elements that they added, I enjoyed. It ultimately was a Wanda movie. And since we just had WandaVision and kind of felt like we had a sort of conclusion to that, it didn't feel needed, and I was just surprised at how bored I was in the beginning. And a lot of people say the worst sin a movie can commit is being boring. And I was really nervous in that beginning part when I was feeling that way. I'm just like, oh my god, am I gonna hate this movie? Which I didn't. I just feel like it's very, very hit or miss. I know some people are gonna love it, so like, don't go into it expecting to absolutely hate it. I just think that all of us were expecting a larger type of movie, like a Spider-Man No Way Home type of movie, and that isn't exactly what we got. So thank you for hanging out with me while I kind of discussed what was unfortunately my most anticipated movie of the year, but didn't quite turn into the best movie of the year. I hope I gave you some info to help you in going to see this movie, to kind of determine what your expectations should be. So until next time, bonne journée and au revoir.